President tweeting, quote, "Why is the AG Jeff Sessions asking the Inspector General to investigate potentially massive FISA abuse? Will take forever, has no prosecutorial power, and already late with reports on Comey, etc. Isn't the IG an Obama guy? Why not use Justice Department lawyers? Disgraceful," unquote. Sessions this afternoon responded to those attacks, saying in part, quote, "As long as I am the Attorney General, I will continue to discharge my duties with integrity and honor." Note that, as long as I am the Attorney General, Sessions saying there, a pointed reminder to the heckler-in-chief that he indeed has the power to change Mr. Sessions' employment status if he wants, but as long as Sessions has the job he has, he'll do it the way he sees as appropriate. This public shaming for the man President Trump hired for this job is just the latest attack President Trump has aimed at Attorney General Sessions. Every time it has been an attack on Sessions for abiding by Justice Department protocols. Just wondering, has an Attorney General ever before in American history been so publicly assailed by his boss and for doing what is considered to be ethical, such as his recusal from the Russia investigation, or appropriate, in today's case, having the Inspector General look into questions about Justice Department conduct? The president would seem to value loyalty above all else. Take one of President Trump's most loyal and closest confidants, White House Communications Director Hope Hicks. She admitted to congressional investigators that she has said things that are not true on behalf of her boss, the president, according to a source. Lies she characterized as white lies, not about anything substantial, and Hicks has insisted she's never lied about the Russia investigation. But what have these lies been about, and to whom? To the American people? To journalists? And about what? Ms. Hicks declined to elaborate when we asked her earlier today, but she is hardly the only senior advisor in focus today. A source has told CNN that Jared Kushner is unlikely to ever get a top-secret security clearance as long as the special counsel investigation is ongoing. You might recall that yesterday we learned that the president's son-in-law and senior advisor had his interim security clearance downgraded from top-secret SCI to secret, a move that is incredibly significant. Someone who negotiated Mideast peace for a previous administration, that's what Kushner does now in addition to other duties, told me that the job would have been impossible if he had not had a top-secret SCI clearance. Quote, "I would have had to quit. You can't even go into meetings in the Situation Room with a secret clearance. They literally give that to anyone without a criminal record on day one." Kushner is basically flying blind in a snowstorm. The official told me that he cannot imagine how Kushner will be able to continue serving in the role he's been in, saying, quote, "It's hard to imagine having any substantive, high-level policy conversations that don't include at least top-secret information. Plus, it's sometimes hard to keep track of what's classified at which level, so if folks are responsible, they won't talk about anything classified when Kushner's around." Some possible insight into why Kushner is having such a tough time getting the security clearance he needs was revealed by sources familiar with intelligence reports on the matter, telling the Washington Post that officials from at least 4 countries have privately discussed ways they could try to manipulate Kushner by, quote, "taking advantage of his complex business arrangements, financial difficulties, and lack of foreign policy experience," unquote. We should note that it's not as if top-secret clearance has only been granted to a select few dozen people. A 2015 report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence reported that 1,363,483 Americans had top-secret clearances, the kind that has been denied Jared Kushner. Think about that. Which, when you think about all of this, frankly, it's pretty astounding. For more than a year, someone whom the United Arab Emirates, China, Israel, and Mexico reportedly think of someone they could manipulate had access to the most secret information the U.S. government has. Now, how does that square with the issue of being responsible with top-secret information that President Trump described during the 2016 campaign against Hillary Clinton?
This was not just extreme carelessness with classified material, which is still totally disqualifying. This is calculated, deliberate, premeditated misconduct. Her actions put our national security at risk and put the safety and security of your children and your families at risk. I'm going to enforce all laws concerning the protection of classified information.
So, to sum up, in just the last 24 hours, President Trump attacked the Attorney General for trying to abide by appropriate protocols instead of running the Justice Department like his own private Oppo research shop. His communications director has admitted that she has communicated falsehoods, and we have learned that one of the president's very top aides is potentially so compromised, it's unclear how he can function in his job without the White House seriously compromising top secret information. You know what we call a day like that around here? Wednesday. Amanda, your response to all this?
I mean, I just find it very hard to believe that after facing a 9-hour grilling session on the Hill yesterday, she just by chance resigns today because it was in the works for a long time. That just doesn't seem like a natural thing to me. Perhaps she just reached a breaking point, and I do feel for the other staffers in that press shop. By all appearances, Hope was stoic, Hope was professional, and when you lose somebody who's at the head of the ship, it can feel like things are coming apart, and that's my sense of what's happening.
Let me give you one way to interpret this as someone who watched people leave. 2 4-letter words. Be careful.
Yeah, you watch out.
Push and pull. Was she pushed because this is such a difficult environment? I had to go get grilled on the Hill. I had a problem with the Rod Porter thing. Or was she pulled because she said, a lot of people I saw, 55 plus at the FBI, she's not in that category. I've got 2 kids in college and I can make 3 times as much on the outside. I look at this and say, this looks like a push. That is, she said, I can't take this anymore. I got to get out. Push or pull, you make your choice.
Yeah, or it could be a combination thereof, although she's unmarried and doesn't have kids to worry about, but obviously she wants to have a nice life.
I mean, look, I'm a young person that got started in politics early, and I like to always say that I was 25 or I'm 28, I'm not 40, and I do have some other things I'd like to do. But look, the fact of the matter here is that Hope Hicks resigning from the White House does not mean she gets away from the Mueller investigation, does not mean she has abdicated from her participation in the kerfuffle that is, in my opinion, this White House. And Hope Hicks admitted on the record to someone that she told lies. There's no such thing. White lies are still lies. And so I want to know what Hope Hicks lied about, how many times was she lying about it, and how do those lies impact the American people? So I hope that Hope is not rewarded for her time in the White House. I don't think folks who lie to the American people, who participate in the things that folks who at the highest levels of this Trump White House have participated in should be rewarded with anything.
6 years ago, I'm sorry, 20 minutes ago, when I did the commentary just about all the crazy things going on, President Trump attacking Jeff Sessions for abiding by protocols, Hope Hicks admitting she lied, everything with Jared Kushner. You know, those were the 3 things, 3 huge stories, but we just call that Wednesday, and now we have Hope Hicks resigning. Again, it does seem like there is more chaos in this news cycle every day than any other period I can recall because of the Trump White House. I mean, look, there are events that intervene, the horrific Florida shooting, a war abroad, things that have nothing to do with the White House. But day after day after day, this White House is making news, often bad for themselves, often self-inflicted wounds.
But this does explain the tweets President Trump wrote against Sessions today. I do think to some extent. A little bit, but listen, let's pretend that we know that Trump knew that Hope was going to leave. Trump is losing his team. What Trump really wants in Attorney General Jeff Sessions is a John Mitchell, Nixon's Attorney General, who later managed his campaign and covered up for Nixon, and later, went to jail and became the first Attorney General ever to go to prison. But I do think that Trump wants a protector, someone to stop the Russia investigation, because now he is losing people. The indictments are mounting up. There's a trial set for Manafort in September. The tide is turning against him on this front, and he is rapidly losing control.
I want to go through, just to take a moment, to go through all the White House communications directors we've had in the 13 months of the Trump administration. Jason Miller, who was named to the job but withdrew his name. Sean Spicer, of course. Mike Dubke came after Spicer. Spicer, again, for an interim basis. Then Scaramucci, of course, came in. I think that was 11 days long. Hope Hicks filled in for Scaramucci after his departure, and now she's resigning. That is a lot of communications directors in 1 year plus.
It is a whole lot, and it's truly unfortunate. Look, I think that the job of White House communications directors kind of helps set the overall communication strategy for this White House. The press secretary is the person that responds in real time to the press. It kind of takes a lot of the heat, but the White House communications director sets out a strategy, helps shape the image, if you will, of the White House. This is something that this White House has not been able to do because of these self-inflicted wounds. So I don't know who is going to come in man and want to take the job as the White House communications
Jared
director.
Kushner.
Okay,
He needs a new
the qualified
title.
people don't want to be there.
He needs a new job. Perhaps you don't need to have top secret security clearance to be a White House communications director. That's a helpful idea, Amanda Carpenter. I'm sure they appreciate it at the White House. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is at the White House right now. Jeff, tell us more. How is this playing? How are staffers reacting?
Well, Jake, this certainly is the latest, as you all have been saying, in the wave of resignations. They've kind of gotten used to how to deal with sudden resignations here. We have lost track of the number of not only communications directors, but chiefs of staff, senior advisors, members of the cabinet, and others. I mean, so the reality here is, though, Hope Hicks is someone different. Hope Hicks is in proximity, the closest to the Oval Office, and just in the role of her being an advisor is the closest to this president. What this is a reflection of, Jake, I talked to an aide who's in this building right here behind me who said this is a example of the pressure cooker that this West Wing has become. It is an example of how complicated the job has become. She spent yesterday, as we've been talking about, for some 8-9 hours on Capitol Hill. That is not exactly what she signed up for. So it's just the realization that this is far more about the president. Individual lives and futures, and there are people making the decision that it's better to not be here, even though they are supportive. She, of course, is very supportive of this president, as are most people who leave. But Jake, I would say of all the resignations we've sat here and talked about on the North Lawn, this is, I would certainly say, the biggest, at least in terms of the president. How will he function on a day-by-day basis? She's the one out the Oval Office. He says, Hope, bring me this. Hope, bring me that. To me, that is my question. How does the president do without someone this close to him? That's something we'll have to keep an eye on. She's been she's cooled his temper at sometimes. She's reasoned with him. This is a very big resignation today, Jake.
It is, and Jeff, you and I remember the early days of the Trump campaign in 2015 when it was basically just Donald Trump, Keith Schiller, his security guy, Corey Lewandowski, his campaign manager, and Hope Hicks. And that would pretty much be it quite often.
No question about it. In those early days, those early rallies in Iowa and New Hampshire, back when President Obama was here in the White House, when the Trump candidacy was largely viewed as something that was just happening and it would have a shelf life and expiration date well before those Iowa caucuses, Hope Hicks was there, and she was at the president's side. She helped shape him into the candidate he was, or certainly was at his side for all of that. So again, this is just a realization that this has gotten so much bigger with the special counsel, with the House and Senate committees underway. But one person also told me just a couple weeks ago, Jake, I'm just remembering it right now, that the conversation that Hope Hicks had with Bob Mueller's team that lasted hours upon hours, that was something that actually weighed on her much more so, I believe, than the Capitol Hill testimony. So again, an example, this is tough work, and it's much harder than those early campaign rallies, Jake.
And Jeff, Kaitlan Collins, our colleague who works at the White House also for CNN, reporting that Hicks first considered resigning several weeks ago during the Rob Porter scandal. Obviously, she's been romantically linked with Rob Porter and led the initial defense of Rob Porter that they quickly had to walk away from when it became clear that there was at least photographic evidence and many on-the-record testimonials as to Rob Porter being a domestic abuser.
Indeed, Jake, that was a critical period, and it's one of the only times I can recall that the president, at least privately we heard, had some questions about Hope Hicks's judgment. She, of course, was having a relationship with Rob Porter, and that appeared to color how the White House reacted to that. And that scandal, of course, had far-reaching effects. You could argue that that scandal actually has led to the whole situation of the security clearances and Jared Kushner. So Hope Hicks's role in that, getting the White House Chief of Staff to come out and defend Rob Porter. Interesting that we had an on-the-record comment from the White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, praising Hope Hicks. But Jake, the reality is behind the scenes, those two clashed somewhat. But it was that period, potentially a lack of judgment. One of, the few times the president was asking about that, and probably one of the few mistakes she made at least visible in terms of a communications director. She was, compromised in this. That certainly led to this. So as Kaitlan Collins, our colleague, is reporting, she did consider it at the time. Again, the president certainly wanted Hope Hicks around, but she came to this decision today, and we're told she'll be leaving at some point in the coming weeks, Jake.
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thanks so much. That's the old cartoon character, Mr. Magoo, a bumbling, doddering fool, and apparently, according to the Washington Post, the nickname President Trump has given to his attorney general. We're back with our politics lead. A source tells CNN that behind the scenes, President Trump is fuming and indignant after Attorney General Sessions responded to the president's Twitter attack with acts of defiance, practically daring the president to fire him in a statement he put out defending his priorities. And Sessions was later seen dining in the company of Rod Rosenstein, another of the president's frequent targets, and the Justice Department official supervising the Russia probe after Sessions recused himself. The president's attacks had already prompted Justice Department staffers to give their boss a bulletproof vest as a tongue-in-cheek gag gift. My panel is back with me. Mr. Magoo, that's not a particularly nice thing to say about your attorney general.
It's
and
not.
Guess what? You can get rid of him.
Yeah, but he would risk more if he did. And good for AG Sessions. I think he was the first Republican senator to endorse him, and this is how he repays him. There's one thing to be disappointed in somebody who works for you. There's another thing to malign them, and publicly. You have those kind of conversations behind closed doors, not through tweets to the entire world.
Sessions used to be the senator from Alabama. His former colleague in the Senate, Richard Shelby, said that if he were Sessions, he would not stand for such treatment. Take a listen.
I wouldn't be anybody's whipping boy. I wouldn't be belittled because the president's saying you don't have any confidence in me. So that is Jeff's challenge right now, and what he wants to do and how he does it. And he's a good man. He's going through a lot. He's got a lot of challenges.
You hear Senator Shelby saying that he wouldn't stand for it. What do you think?
I think it's hard to overstate just how badly broken the relationship between Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions is, to where the president publicly lambasts him all the time. And Jeff Sessions finally, after him calling him weak, very weak, saying he regretted picking him, that he was disappointed in him, finally pushed back on that in that statement, which wasn't even that forceful, but it was very pointed and directed at the president. The president did not like that statement, but it just is very telling to see what this relationship is like between these two men. And this has been going on for nearly a year now. It was last March that Jeff Sessions recused himself from overseeing the Russia investigation, which is what has infuriated the president and really taken over his mind. And he's never gotten over it. He may publicly not mention it for a few weeks, or it might be off of his mind, but it always comes back to this recusal, and it's just hard to overstate just how much these men dislike each other. When they're in meetings together at the White House, as they were just 2 weeks ago, welcoming Medal of Valor recipients in the Oval Office, taking photos with them, Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump barely interacted. So it's hard to overstate just how badly broken this relationship is. But the next question is, where does it go from here? And no one knows. The White House staffers don't understand why the president won't just fire him if he's this tired of him. People at the DOJ don't think that Jeff Sessions is going to quit anytime soon. He seems to be digging his heels in. So we're just going to continue this saga of them publicly criticizing each other, but not saying anything to each other directly.
Does the president want to get rid of his attorney general? Not that I know of.
The Sarah Sanders clip that we showed there accidentally, it was a reporter saying, does the president want to get rid of this attorney general? And Sanders says, not that I know of. What is that? that's not
probably an honest answer.
Right, no. Do you want to get rid of your babysitter? Not that I know of.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not, it's an honest answer, fine. Well, first of all, it's not an honest answer because she probably has some idea. She knows something. But more importantly, that's not what you say about your attorney general. You say, no, the appropriate thing you're supposed to say is, no, he has the complete confidence of the president, or you get rid of him.
Yeah, look, the president is never going to see it this way, but the reality is the attorney general is protecting him from himself. The only way that they are truly going to get beyond this Russia investigation is if the Department of Justice can function independently from the West Wing, make an independent evaluation based on facts, and provide recommendations that either clear his name and clear their administration or not. And the idea that this is somehow directed or in any way influenced by the West Wing is how we found ourselves in this problem in the first place. So look, the president, again, is not going to see it this way, but what Attorney General Sessions did yesterday by pushing back is the absolute best thing that he could do for this administration.
And it's why you have Nina Turner the new president of the Jeff Sessions fan club, which certainly,
just on the issue of him standing up for himself.
But also, I mean, but Josh's point is a cogent one, because the truth is everything that the president has been mad at him for doing is him being ethical, him recusing himself, him saying, no, I'm going to have the inspector general inspect this, look into this.
Doing things the proper way.
Right, exactly.
And not the Trump way, which is just do what I say, how I say do it, when I say do it. Forget the consequences, just do what I say. And so just on him standing up for himself, for himself, you know his policies I don't agree with at all, but good for the AG for standing up.
There's one other interesting thing. Jerry Falwell Jr., who is a big supporter of the president's, piled on Twitter and wrote this after the president badmouthed Sessions. Jerry Falwell Jr. wrote, "I couldn't agree more. U.S. Attorney General Sessions must be part of the Bush-Romney-McCain Republican establishment. He probably supported real Donald Trump early in campaign to hide who he really is. Or he could just be a coward." What?
I don't often do a double take on Twitter, but I read that and I was like, what?
Is this a parody account?
Yeah.
It was laughable. I mean, that's like, you know, it takes a lot for people in Washington to defend someone like Jeff Sessions, but that tweet had everyone being like, what are you talking about?
But I mean, what do you think? What goes through your mind as somebody, you know, you're a very serious conservative. You're part of the conservative establishment in this town, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense at all. When you see Jerry Falwell Jr. start to float these conspiracy theories that he only supported Donald Trump to hide who he what does that even mean? How would that work?
That's a really good question. How would that work? I felt like I missed a chapter, right? I mean, all of a sudden it's like, wait, Falwell is that? This is where we went here? It's like InfoWars, right?
Yes.
No, I mean, I don't know. Clearly it's out of place, and I think that is a sentiment that is not shared widely anywhere.
And Jeff Sessions is one of the few people in the president's cabinet that is actually carrying out the agenda that he said he was going to enact if he got into the White House.
irony.
So that is where saying that he was hiding who he really is. Jeff Sessions is doing exactly what we thought he would do if he became Attorney General as the Attorney General.
And the statement that you were referring to that Sessions put out that is pointed if you speak Washingtonese. He says, as long as I am the Attorney General, I will continue to discharge my duties with integrity and honor, and this department will continue to do its work in a fair and impartial manner according to the law and Constitution. What he's saying there is, as long as I am Attorney General, meaning go ahead and fire me, big boy, if you want to, I am going to do the ethical thing.
That's right.
Right?
He's saying this is how I roll, Mr. President. So, you know, come on, bring it. He's saying bring it to the president. That's what he's saying.
But it's almost like a dare to fire him.
No.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been down this road so many times over the last year and a half. How else is he supposed to handle it? He's turned the other cheek. He's provided information that would be counter to what the president is claiming. He's handled it in every way you possibly can. He's now gotten to the point where he's basically saying, this is the way I roll.
Well, and staying on in the job is a dare to fire him, because it's very clear from the president's tweets and many, many criticisms of Jeff Sessions that he wants him to quit. He doesn't want to have to fire him. So Jeff Sessions even just remaining on and not quitting is essentially a dare.
It's defiant in itself. And your point, Josh, is a great one, which is he is protecting him from himself.
Absolutely. And a number of senators and congressmen on the Hill are begging him to stay right where he's at.